So base layers, they're supposed to wick away sweat from our bodies, right? Or what if everything that we've been taught or that we know about base layers up until this point isn't really what's best for athletes alike and also for our performance, whether it's on the ice or on the pitch or on the field? To find out, let's break this down and take a detailed look at something that could really change the industry of base layers as we know it. Now, before we look into how conventional base layers work, it's definitely important to touch on why we sweat in the first place. Now, during physical activity or exercise, your heart rate increases, your blood pressure increases, which also increases the temperature of your overall body. Now, the way that the body combats this is that it needs to reduce its overall temperature to keep you cool enough to be able to do what you're doing and also to make sure that you don't pass out. The way that it does this is that through tiny pores on the surface of your skin, it releases moisture or sweat. Once this sweat is released, it comes into contact with the air and begins to evaporate. During this process, heat is released from the body and your body is able to regulate its own temperature completely naturally. Now, if we look at the way conventional base layers work, they actually remove this moisture or this sweat from the surface of the skin, and a lot of them will then displace or then evaporate that moisture from the actual material of the base layer itself. Now, in a lot of sports, especially CrossFit as a very good example, you'll notice a lot of CrossFit athletes don't use base layers. They try and expose as much of their skin as possible because a lot of them understand that the best place for sweat is on the surface of our skin. The process of the sweat or the moisture evaporating from the surface of your skin is what's cooling us down. And conventional base layers that a lot of us use in hockey removes that layer or that moisture from the surface of our skin and deals with it in the actual material or the fabric itself. Now, this is interrupting that natural process that we just discussed at the beginning of the video. What then happens is that your body has to then produce more sweat, release it through those pores, and then what happens is that sweat, that moisture is then again being taken away from the surface of your skin and into your base layers. Something that's very surprising is how much energy your body uses trying to regulate its own temperature. So interrupting this process is definitely not going to be the optimal way to keep your body cooler while you're playing a sport or while you're exercising. Aside from this, there's a lot of other issues that occur when that sweat is being removed from the surface of our skin and into this material or this fabric, i.e. base layers. For me, probably one of the biggest and most irritating features of having wet base layers is after you finish taking a shift or if you get sent to the box. You're sat there in effectively wet base layers or wet clothes in a freezing cold ice rink, which doesn't feel good. It's simply not great for you as a player, especially given the environments that we play hockey in. Now, what comes swiftly next to this is that once your base layers get wet, because they're made from a synthetic material, it means that they're going to be very, very slippery. So all of those nice grippy features that some base layers have quickly become pointless because the entire surface of the base layers are wet and they become slippery. So it means that your elbow pads, your chest pads are moving around all over the place and aren't sitting as comfortably as they were when the base layers were dry. And another issue that is probably something that you won't notice until a little bit later down the line is that if you think about what happens when your sweat is being removed and sits inside the base layers as it waits to be evaporated from the base layers rather than your skin, is that what comes along with the sweat? All of the bacteria that is coming off of your body. So when your base layers do manage to evaporate that sweat that's on the surface or inside them, it means that all that's left in the base layers is dead skin cells and also the bacteria that comes off of your body, which is why base layers need to be washed so frequently and it's why they smell so bad. So recently we've been looking at the base layers from a company called Zenkai Sports. Now, the only way that I can describe their base layers is alien. I've never seen base layers in my life react to water the way these do. If you spray water on these base layers while somebody's wearing them, the water just bounces off of them in all directions. It does anything but get absorbed or sucked in. If you spray water or splash water on these base layers on a completely flat surface, the water just sits there. It almost reminds me of when you see water floating around in space or even Mercury. It just sits on the surface of these things and doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't sink in. It's the craziest thing that I've ever seen. Aside from this looking incredibly cool, it has a lot of features and a lot of benefits for us while we're playing sports or while we're exercising. Now, one of the biggest and most critical features about these base layers is because they resist or repel water, it means that they're not going to be taking that water off of the surface of our skin. If you remember what I touched on at the beginning of the video, it means that the body's natural process of being able to regulate its own temperature is not interrupted like it is when you look at conventional base layers, which remove that moisture or that sweat from the surface of our skin. Because these base layers repel or resist water, that sweat or that moisture on the surface of your skin is allowed to remain there and evaporate completely naturally in its own time, which is the best way for your body to be able to regulate its own temperature completely naturally. Now, aside from this, another big benefit is, of course, because that moisture and that sweat isn't being taken away off the skin and into the base layers themselves, it means that you're not getting any of that nasty bacteria sitting inside your base layers. So that means that these base layers are not going to stink. Zenkai's base layers have the best odor management that I've seen across any material in any sport. Now, what I mean by this is not just that their base layers are anti-odor, because a lot of base layers advertise that. Because of that key technology, which is Philium, it means that these base layers do not stink after they've been used. I'm talking about you take your base layers off of your body after you've been playing hockey, you hang them up, maybe give them a shake if they've got a little bit of water sitting on the surface of the base layers, and after you come back to them the next time you're getting onto the ice, these things will not stink. We've done this week after week after receiving these base layers, and we've not had to wash them since. It's the craziest thing that I've ever seen. So other than the awesome convenience of not having base layers that absolutely stink and not having to wash them after every single practice, after every single game, is really going to help us cut down on the washing that you do, the water that you consume. There's a lot of benefits there. But there's also another benefit hidden in there. Because you're not going to be washing your base layers anywhere near as often as any other base layers you've ever seen, it means that they're going to last much longer. I know that when I wash my base layers after every practice, after every game, it just aids how quickly the base layers break down. And another point is a lot of the properties that you see in base layers across all sports, the more you wash them, the more these properties get washed away and start to fade out. Now, this is true for base layers like 37.5 from Bauer. The more I washed them, the more I used them, the more I noticed that those features became completely non-existent. Whereas the features that we're getting from Zenkai Sports base layers are for the lifetime of the base layers, which is something that I have personally never come across. That includes the water repellency or the water resistance. This isn't something that's going to wash out. The same as the anti-odor, because of that Philium tech, this is not going to wash out. It's for the lifetime of the garment, which in my opinion is something that I have never come across before. Another massive benefit of the Zenkai base layers is that we said earlier on that they're made from cotton, which makes them breathable, which means all of these features, the water repellency, the water resistance, that has been achieved in other garments, in other industries before, but the fact that these are breathable is something that I have never seen being put together. Seeing the water or liquid bounce off of the surface of these base layers like some sort of alien technology, and knowing that these things are breathable because they're made from cotton, is incredible. Now, all of these crazy benefits have been achieved by treating the material at a fiber level using a proprietary process. And when Zenkai's base layers do get some water on them, because they aren't a synthetic, they dry 40% faster than other base layers. These also contain compression properties, which means that they're going to be locking down core muscles, aiding us in our performance on the ice. Now, it's super important for me to mention that Zenkai's base layers do not contain DWR, which is durable water repellency. This is a water resistance feature that's found on other base layers that will definitely wash out, especially after you've used the base layer, say 5 to 10 times. You'll start to notice a massive decline in the water resistance or water repellency of these types of base layers and materials, whereas Zenkai's is for the lifetime of the garment. It doesn't wear out. Important note is Zenkai's base layers do not use any nanoparticles or harsh chemicals that can break down and latch into your skin or the environment. Their base layers are produced in according to Blue Sign standards for sustainable materials and production. Zenkai's entire process is eco-friendly. It's safe for people and also for the planet. Now, the only way that I could describe the feel of Zenkai's base layers is very soft to the touch. They don't feel plasticky, they don't feel synthetic, just very soft like a regular polo t-shirt you'd wear outside, making them very comfortable. Now, aside from this massive, almost unbelievable list of benefits and features that these base layers have, because they're made from cotton, it also means that they are naturally tactile or grippy when it comes to putting them against our pads. Now, a lot of other base layers are made from synthetics, so when they get wet, they get slippery, your elbow pads are constantly dropping down, you have to readjust your pads to make them comfortable. You don't have to do that anywhere near as much with Zenkai's base layers. Because they're made from cotton, your pads are going to be much more secure when you put them on. They're not going to shift around anywhere near as much as any other base layers that you could compare these things to, which again is another benefit to add to the massive list of what these unbelievable base layers are able to do for us. All of these insane benefits can be found in Zenkai's base layers, whether it's the tops, either their short-sleeved ones or their long-sleeved, or their shorts or pants. This is technology that you'll find in their entire line. If it has their logo on it, you know it's going to have these properties. So the standout feature with Zenkai socks is definitely going to be the anti-odor and lace bite properties that the socks have. While they don't repel water anywhere near as well as the tops and bottoms of the Zenkai base layers, the anti-odor and anti-lace bite properties are going to be really big standout features. That means just like the base layers, you're going to be able to wear these socks game after game, practice after practice, shake them off and hang them up, and the next time you come to them, there is going to be no bad smell. It's going to seriously cut down on your washing, it's going to improve how long the socks last for, but most importantly, they're not going to stink. And just for the record, Zenkai socks are 67% cotton, 31% nylon, and 2% spandex. It's definitely important to note that Zenkai's base layer system works best when all of the pieces are worn together. That's not to say that you can't wear Zenkai systems, for example the top, with standard or conventional base layer bottoms, but what that will point out is how behinded standard moisture wicking base layers or fabrics are in comparison to Zenkai's tech. As always, a big thank you for watching this video, and a big thank you to the Everyone Active Raiders and this team here at Sapphire Ice and Leisure Center for helping us make this video possible. Of course, if you want more information on these base layers, there'll be a link down below in the video description that will pretty much blow your mind with some of the information that they have there and some of the other products that they're also working on right now. But as always, make sure you thumbs up the video, subscribe if you want to see content just like this, have the notification bell turned on, and I will catch you in the next video. But before you go anywhere, thumbs up, subscribe. Take care.